So, hello everyone. I hope you hear me well. And we are starting today's webinar. It is 10th of December 2022. It's Saturday, 21 o'clock UK time, and everyone can join. It's still open for joining during all the webinars, so you can continue joining while we're starting the live on the Facebook. And also it's going to be recorded for those of you that are not able to participate. And for me, it is a very interesting topic, and it is better to actually start the topic. So, how to rule in the construct of reality? Of course, my name is Alexander Ermenkov. You can see more about me on my webpage, and I'm going to continue sharing with you more information while we are moving through the different slides that I have prepared. And so I'm a ruling reality coach. What is a ruling reality coach? You are going to understand during my presentation about what is reality according to me and how we are moving forward into understanding it. But for now, it is good to know that I'm a ruling reality coach, and I'm one that is very passionate about reality. And that's why I would like to explore with you today what is reality, how it's constructed, and why we need to understand the construct of reality, and why it's very existential to know everything. So when we want to go into ruling reality, we understand that it is not for those that are just waiting things to happen. It is for those people that are ready to start generating. It is not for those that are constantly willing to be affected, but it is also for those that are starting to influence, not for those only that are constantly just willing to change without understanding the directions of where they are going, but it is mostly for those that are willing to rule in their reality. And here is my logo that I have created, which is approximately trying to explain what is the meaning of ruling reality. In the center is the man. We are in the center of our reality. It happens to be so. Inside of us, there is an invisible part of us we call the internal part of us. And inside of us, we are limitless beings. I'm going to explain further down the road what is the meaning. And in the outside reality, actually, we are experiencing limitations. And this is how the outside reality works, and we cannot change it. And this clash that is happening between the limitless being inside of us and the limited around us reality is actually what we are trying to rule as a human being. Of course, there are different ways we are doing it. Also, the human being is in a position, in a transaction between what is above, what is below, what is inside, what is outside of us. So it is a very interesting topic, long-term explore. So let's go fundamentally in the construct of reality. The construct of reality is complex, fractal, and multi-layer. This is one of the things that we are to long-term, of course, unveil. And it is very interesting because the way I'm presenting all the information, and for me personally, everything is continuing to be explored, because what I found out during the last 2-3 years, especially after the COVID, is that there is so much unknown that we are forgetting even to continue exploring. And this is so interesting to actually be willing to move forward into this. Also, the other thing that we are going to speak about is what is the difference between construct, context, and content, because these three things are part of the definition of reality. And of course, we are playing active part of reality also. Then we are going to explore about what is the difference between individualized part of reality, the universal, the interdimensional construct of reality. And of course, long-term, the construct of reality is experienced by each of us based on the so-called holographic reality, which is the objective reality And it is holographic because it is layer upon layer based on all the human beings that we are interacting together. And in order to understand how I'm going to explain you reality and the construct, let's just imagine the first lines that we, all the human beings, are conscious about. And this is the so-called internal part of reality. Then we have the external part of reality. Then we have the other division, which is the individual part of reality and the collective part of reality. And then we have the 4 quadrants of reality: the internal individual, the internal collective, the external individual, and the external collective. All this that I'm trying to explain from all my experience is going to later give you a much broader understanding to everything that is happening with all of us out there. So let's see what I'm meaning by internal individual. In the internal individual is everything that is in our mental realm and that we cannot actually see, feel, in the sense that it is not part of the physical matter reality. There is our awareness, our perception, our consciousness, subconsciousness, dreams, visualizations, memory of experiences, pattern recognitions, predictability, projections, intent, attention, focus, identity, desire, passion, urges, will, everything that we know that it's inside of us, and we are working with all these things. We can describe them, we can label them. Some of us are very strongly involved, for example, through personal development, into trying to understand their internal individual part of reality. But this is not everything that reality is. The other thing that is important to see, and for me it makes so much sense, is the so-called external individual. Why it's individual? Because it's unique to each one of us, and this is actually our body. Without our body, we can never make the expression of the I amness, the one thing that is working in this internal individual and have awareness about everything that is happening inside of us, is the so-called I amness, or the I with a big letter, that is living and moving everything in our personal reality. But of course, we need this vehicle called the body in order to express everything and to be able to feel all the feelings, the vibrations, to have these behaviors, to be able to move, to understand the alignment, coherence, faith, love, authenticities, attitudes, and everything. And that's why we actually have this quadrant 2, our individual body, that is 100% different than every other one that is out there. Then what is in the collective internal? In the collective internal is everything that is already collected from all the human beings that have already existed till this very moment. And this is what is making all our beliefs, religions, worldviews, science, laws, orders, value, culture, language, knowledge, concepts, and theory. It is also invisible. It is also not part of the physical matter reality, but it is constantly governing all of us, because even today, everything that is in our head and with which we are working as part of the collective internal and the way we are behaving is formed from everything that humanity has experienced till this very moment. And then, of course, in the collective external is where are the so-called money, assets, all the civilization, industrialization, technology, everything that the human beings were able to express during their conscious experience here on this physical matter reality plane. Also all the money, but of course also the construct of the cosmos, the universe, the nature, everything that is done even before the human beings were here. So all these 4 quadrants are very important, and these are actually the 4 things that we are long-term learning ourselves during our experience here to rule and to understand how to work in every one of them. Another interesting thing about these 4 quadrants is that actually inherently it is put also there to be a conflict. And that's why when we look into reality, we are involved into it, but also we see so much things moving forward in different direction, and it is part of how we are created. In our brain, for example, when you go into the individual external, because of the way how our body is created, we have the left and the right hemisphere of the brain, and then the left is more focused on the contact, while the right is more focused on the context. The left is focused on the details, while the right is focused on the totality. The left is focused on the impact, while the right is focused on the bigger purposes and meanings. The left on the logic, the right on the intuition. And actually, there are a lot of new researches where they're showing that even each part of the brain is forming its own consciousness, and both of these consciousness are validating each other constantly. It is an interesting thing that, of course, long-term we can continue researching. And then what are the conflicts that are constantly even in our bodies? In our bodies, we know about all the automations that are able long-term to help us, but when there's some part that we don't like, it requires to rule our body in order to escape one type of automations and go into others. Also, because of the limitations of the body, we have a conflict between the limitless being that is inside of us and the limitations that we are put into. But long-term, the principle for these conflicts is that they are ready, and it is possible to reconcile them and to learn how to move forward into the reality. Of course, the body, health and vitality is very important to be sustained, but also the universal energy and flows are also playing important role in the way how our body is behaving. Then we have the body wants and lasts, but also we need to know that this body is not only in order to be able to sustain everything that it wants, but it has another part to play as a vehicle into moving into the reality. And that's why we have this other conflict between embodiment versus transcendence. Part of us wants to escape or transcend and to move forward above what the body limitation is, but also from all this limitlessness that is out there in the invisible part, there are not possible things to be experienced if they are not embodied, if they are not felt, experienced, and relived through the body. So there is also very interesting dynamics that are going out there. Then in the collective, there is also inherent conflicts that are there, and it is basically the subjective and objective truth, because each of one is perceiving reality in different way. And then all of us, let's say we are more than 8 billion in the moment, we have subjective perception about reality, but we are constantly to validate our subjective perceptions with the objective truth about reality. And we have also the individual authenticity versus the common good, the values benefiting us versus the desires that are benefiting only me, the shadows separation of the individual versus the unique expressions that all of us are having, and the conflicts which are much more easily understandable in the external collective reality. It is civilization versus nature. Are we going to exploit at the expense of nature reality? This is one of the big conflicts, and you can see so many specific topics that are going on in our reality. Then universal laws versus human laws of exploitations. How another big conflict is why in the external collective we cannot have beings under order. And of course, another big conflict is creation versus creator. And the normal conflicts we all know about is the so-called wars. And then let's move back to reality and our construct. One part of the construct of reality, because of perception, it is happening in our individual mind. It is part of this solipsism type of philosophy, but it is not enough, and it is helping us only to understand part of the quadrants of reality. But the important thing there is to know the answer to the question, and this answer is different every morning and every day. What do we see? What do we perceive of reality? And here you can see the dimensions interacting with the earth plane. Our construct is as of a border zone creature, and that's why I was showing you the different quadrants of reality, because yes, we are perceiving reality, but also we are not staying in a specific realm. We are not only physical matter reality creatures, and that's why it is not so easy to understand only one plane of reality. If it were us just like robots, for example, that were just physical matter particles or something and nothing else, maybe we're not going to have awareness and consciousness in a way that we can sense it and understand that there is something more. But because we are constructed in a much more different way, we are able to understand and to perceive our construct also. So, of course, there are other conscious beings in the construct beyond the human, and long-term we have to perceive and to understand all the universal orders of things. And let's move forward to actually the definitions of reality. What is reality? The state of things as they actually exist, as opposed to an idealistic or notional idea of them. There is constantly going a conflict between what is out there and our perception about it. As more closely we come to objectivity, more and more close we are coming to reality of things as they actually exist. It is important because long term, otherwise more than 8 billion beings, we can have 8 billion different views, and to some extent we have, and it is done with a purpose, but also we need to know that reality is not only what is in our head, but also what is beyond this data stream that is out there. So the language through which reality is communicating with us is to the transmission that we are receiving this information through the 5 senses, but we are encoding inside of us through the perception modes all this information, we are visualizing it and so on. But what is important then to understand that we need to see beyond things, and beyond things are processes, are forces in balance. And sometimes in the past, we used to label a lot of these processes as gods, but actually there is everything which is beyond the things, beyond the visible. Where are all the flows, for example, of interconnectedness, is what is very interesting long-term to understand. And then we can answer the question, what we are to do actually in reality. This is very important also to be understood. And just to go back. So exactly in reality, we need long-term just to understand that it is quite enough just to be, just to know who we are, just to be aligned, to understand reality, to observe the processes. And our long-term part in reality is to understand how are we able to interact and work with these processes and to learn to have effects, dominions, generating effects that enrich all of us. And I'll give you now one more example about alignment with reality. We can do both things in reality, or we can influence it, or we can try to bend it by forcing our strong internal perception and understanding about reality. And then we go into force and try to have without being who we need to be. And this is one part of reality where we want to go into a take mode or a deserving mode. And then the other part of reality is when we are influencing. Then we are changing ourselves and trust our reality is going to follow. It is based on the principle that the external world is constantly following our internal world and the way we are. There are a lot of principles out there, but I'm not willing now to go forward into this. But long term, also, there is another line, which is the line between the acceptance and resistance. More and more, we are learning ourselves to accept reality as it is. It is much more easy for us to see more and more of what is out there. Accept what we generate, who we are expressing is what our reality is. Of course, if we go into a resistance, then we are ignoring the feedback. We go into complain, blame, and disconnect mode. And now I'm going to show you exactly which are the 4 things that are helping us to be rulers in the construct of reality. We are to be aligned and positioned. This is the first part, which is very important, and that's why we need to long-term go into understanding what is reality. Then with our intent and with our wants and with our desire, and that's why it's very important to work in this part of us, because this is where actually long-term it is going with the ego power, and that's why we need to learn how to subdue our ego, how to work with it, because it is anyhow there. But here, when with intent we are able to disbalance reality, it is very important to know how to work with it, because all the virtues, all the morals are coming into this part. Then the other thing is the backward doingness. When we understand long-term first the end result that we are possible to do, and then if we start doing our things, then it's totally different processes. And of course, trusting the processes that are already there and exist as a vehicles for us to move in reality are very important. And since we in reality are 100% and totally interconnected in the so-called wholeness, I'm going to explain you now what's the difference between separateness and wholeness. With the beginning of the human existence, it is not possible this to happen without there to be a separateness between us and the allness. So separateness is not good or bad, but we need to understand it and to work with it. And the end direction for everything in reality, for all the things, all the beings that are out there, and all the processes, in the end, the direction is everything to be back into wholeness. So in the beginning, everything starts with separation, individualization, and long-term, the end direction for all the reality is wholeness for all the beings. And when we start from small children, when we rise up, we start to experience the power of ego. And in the separateness realm, of course, ego is the king. And in the wholeness, when we move more and more into maturation with our life moving forward to reality, we understand that it is not only us, we understand the objectivity more and more, we understand reality more and more, and we understand the long-term, the king of the wholeness towards which everything is moving forward is to understand that everything is working and moving into this interconnectedness. So one option is to rule alone, to be separate, to be out of order, to be out of alignment. And the other option, long-term for the human being, is to work and to move into interconnectedness, to be a creature that is ruling our own reality, but in wholeness. And we can experience wholeness only if we dare to embrace all in the reality as actually it is, and not always to go only through our perception. And this is the 2 tendencies: separated, individualized consciousness, or embrace all in wholeness. So there are 3 fundamentals of reality we are long-term to master: the content, things as they really are. The second one is the context, meaning and purpose of all. And a lot of even the personal development is coming only to the two things. The science is strongly into the context, into the content. In the content, we have all the physical matter reality out there. We have all that the normal education is giving for all of us and is feeding us with daily. I'm not saying that it is good and bad. Content is good. Then with our meaning and purpose and going into the deep, we understand that there is much more than content, and we move into the context. Here comes also the personal development, a lot of esoterics and so on and so on. But long term, what is very important is the construct, because only if we understand the construct, so it is a paradox, because if we are to understand something, we need to start with the one thing that we understand the less. We usually want to start in reality with the one thing we understand the most. But actually, this is why I decided to start from the thing that almost nobody is speaking about and nobody can give me a definite answer about. And of course, I'm willing to research long-term the construct, how everything is in wholeness and what is the thing that is not visible but is holding everything in some structure. And now I'm going to ask some small questions, and you can answer or in the chat or for yourself personally. What, in your opinion, is the purpose of life? I will give you my answers to this. A lot of people think that the purpose of life is just to experience it and to gather awareness from all these experiences. Some are also strongly putting that it is also important to consciously impact reality and to leave our legacy and imprint there. Also, it is important to express ourselves through this reality in a way that the wholeness and interconnectedness of reality is really understood, so that everything that we are expressing forward into the reality is towards the direction of interconnectedness and wholeness. And my goal for this webinar is actually to ultimately position ourselves as limitless beings, experiencing reality limitation, but expressing what we want. Because here is a big paradox. If we are limitless inside, if we cannot measure it, we cannot feel it, we cannot understand it, of course, we are daily experiencing reality limitations in a lot of areas of life in the different quadrants, but also why we are allowed to express and to influence and impact reality with what we want. It is good to know about this, but it is possible, all of this, only through mastering the reality and to understand that this is existential for us in order to interact efficiently and create lasting impacts while living more bonded and interconnected space after we are not here. So there are three things that I would like to speak about, which are helping about this bonding. And this is to stop disconnect, to generate wholeness, and to trust the processes that actually long-term the direction is towards wholeness of everything. So in order to stop disconnected, we need to understand how much energy in a connected reality it takes for all of us in order to sustain disconnectedness. And once we realize it, it's much more easy to move into the other direction and start understanding interconnectedness. And once we understand that wholeness is easy, when we embrace everything that is out there as it is, because we long-term are conditioned that we are the ones that are going to change the world. We are the ones that need to create something very special in order to make a different type of world and so on. But everything starts first with embracing all as it is. Of course, then to be separate in connected and aligned universe it's very hard. So it's much more easy to move and to be living in a connected reality. Then how are we to generate wholeness? Because a lot of us are willing to manifest, are willing to move through life, but we are very capable as human beings to create distraction, to create disconnectedness, to create things that are maybe beneficial for ourselves, or we are trying to take away from reality different things. But long term, the big thing that is allowed for all of us is if we are moving forward towards generating wholeness, where all of us are able to participate. So we need to accept all as it is, also to learn that alignment is revealing connection, and what I spoke about, the space, that if we want long-term to move into what is going to be allowed and we to be influential, we are to allow more and more space for others instead of pushing and projecting our individualization. Of course, our individualization is important to know that we have it, because it helps us to develop long-term authenticity and to understand more and more of our uniqueness. But once we realize that we need each other in order to thrive and to move forward in reality, then it is much more helping us to create actually space for each us. And trust the process, that wholeness is the end game, is also important. Nothing will disappear, all will be long-term absorbed into the wholeness. Separateness is to embrace wholeness. Wholeness will make the final order to appear. Wholeness is making all to be in its full potential. So these are the three obvious must that we are to recap. And the big thing here that we are left with after understanding a little bit, of course, it's very much on the surface about reality, is that actually long-term we are part of the influence upon the reality, which we are also observing and are willing to understand. And for me, this is a very big topic here, that it is possible long-term we to know how reality actually works, how to interact within the limitations of reality, how to make reality shifts, because reality is constantly striving towards balance. So how are we creating these disbalances that I spoke about? And long-term, how to measure the influence that each of us are anyhow doing daily upon the reality. And if you think that this is something that is interesting for you, you can leave your the message in the chat. And if you think that long-term it is something that we need to know or to understand, or we can just move without understanding how everything is working and still long-term be successful and influential in everything, it is something that we can think about. But for sure, because of all the researches that I have done, I have created one program called Ruling Reality Basics, where I'm explaining all these things into details, and I'm sharing them with people that are interested. And there I speak for 4 weeks about these fundamentals, influence upon the reality, reality shifts and measures. And there I have created some videos. I have weekly Zoom calls with the people that are interested, and we are speaking strongly about this reality. And I have created something called Ruling Reality Tracker, where there are more and more things that we are constantly to monitor each other in order to start comprehending and understanding what is happening when we daily move into the data stream. And of course, these are some benefits that you are going to achieve. You are going to learn the processes that are more important than the effects, because all of us are usually saying and willing and moving forward towards the shiny things. We want just the end results. Just tell me how to have these specific end results. End results are anyhow byproducts of all the processes that are out there that we are just to participate with them. So once we learn the processes, then everything else starts to fit into place. And of course, the big thing for me personally is how we are to be able to become rulers of our reality. And this is my program. I have some people that have already been in the program. You cannot, maybe you cannot hear it. And this is something that is interesting, at least for me. If you are willing to work with me, it costs $1,000 to work with this program. And you are going to receive also a voucher for this program for additional $1,000, which is connected to a 6-month elite mentorship program of Peter Sage, which is a 12 model program where every week there are different things that are also discussed that are at the end going to lead you to much more understanding also about reality. And it is more like a boot camp where you are able to long-term on a daily basis participate into the experience of this reality. I've went through this program twice already. Now I'm a trainer for this program. It helped me a lot. And basically you are going to receive 2 of my normal programs that I have created. One is about this ruling reality basics, and the other is called Beyond Success Reality. It is, both of them cost $1,000. And if you long-term want to participate in the Elite Mentorship Forum Bootcamp, it is going to be 100% free for you. And this is the Beyond Success program that I have created also. It is 4 different weeks where I'm speaking about excess, scarcity, generating wealth abundance, processes, multiplication, collaboration, a lot of things that are necessary for all of us to understand and to implement daily into our reality, because I'm a rich person. I have a lot of businesses. I like to work in the so-called quadrant number 4 of reality, where the money, the assets, a lot of business people are working there. But of course, in the personal development world, a lot of people that are thinking that to be humble, to have nothing, just to be dependent on the government is much more interesting, and we don't need to own a lot. I have found so many limiting beliefs. And of course, the first one is that we don't want to have more than what is enough for ourselves, which is 100% egoistic. And this is not how we are created. Trade exists, and actually everything that humanity is achieving is just because there is an excess in this country, in that country, in this person or that person. So excess is something that is helping us to actually exchange values and so on. And it is happening only and also now on this level, where I'm just trying to express some of my value to the excess that I have it. And of course, each of us can interact with the excesses that we anyhow have. And it is also a 30-day program about especially the quadrant number 4 of reality. And you can speak with me about this. I have a webpage, alexandermenkov.com, where you can find me about this. And of course, you can ask me more questions, and you can book also a Calendly with me here. And this is all that I was willing to express. And I'm also going to be willing to speak more about you if you have some specific questions that you can ask. It is also possible. So if you have any questions you would like to ask me something specific, or if you think that you don't quite understand, or maybe there are a lot of much more details that you would like to know, you can ask something if you want. Or if you think that this is something that is not interesting for you, it is still okay. And yeah, if you want, or if you feel that this is something that is understandable, or so, Wendy, what do you think? Do you have some questions?
Well,
Do you know all these things? Of course, you've heard them.
Yeah, I think, in fact, I know that I have a lot to learn.
Mm-hmm.
You obviously have a huge, huge passion for this topic. And I come into this topic as a novice. A lot of what you spoke of, while on the surface made sense, underneath, when you really dig deep, it was way beyond my comprehension at this time. However, I find it fascinating, just the whole growth that I've had throughout my EMF journey, my EMT journey, other journeys through personal growth. They are topics I'd never even thought of, such as like the reality of what we really are. And I'm going to be a lifelong learner. There is absolutely no doubt about that. And people like you, who have a very definite path, a journey that you're going on, you know what you want, you know how you want it, and you know that you want to share your knowledge with the rest of the world. You fascinate me. And it's thanks to people like you that I am on a learning experience. And I just want to thank you so much for your presentation and the journey that you've gone on, and your willingness to share it with people like me who are, let's just say, less than educated in the topic, but willing to learn and always have an open mind, because that's the way we have to be. So thank you so much. I really appreciate being able to be part of this and hear you speak.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, so you can say, yeah, and you can learn a lot, and it is something that I'm just constantly exploring. I mean, it's so much up there. So Hans, would you like to say something, or to?
Yes, I
have
my video on. Well, I found it absolutely striking, and I agree with all what you say, and I think in very similar ways. Maybe it is because I'm trained in theology, trained in psychology, and so on and so on. But this is not the point I want to make. My question would be, well, you gave a hint, but my question would be, working with people who are very much earth to earth and very much in data, let's say like that, how to get it over to them that there is something beyond, or that there's something inside this inner world, outer world thing. Well, I'm working with chief information officers and transformation officers and digital transformation. And of course, they live in a world where these, let's say, aspects are not so much present, or not at all, or very little. It is exactly what you said. It is not of your business. It is the how, more than all these aspects. Let's say the transcendency aspect, and what is beyond, and what is inside, and how it corresponds. So that is my question, and maybe you all will experience how to get it over to people like that. You said, well, before we started, that you assisted to a conference of pharmaceutical industry in, and maybe that's the field of implementation. Maybe you know how the dynamics are.
Yeah, I mean, in the pharmaceutical industry, everybody knows that the drug, when it's created, it's always compared towards placebo. You know, this placebo effect, which is the psychological part of the drug. Just if you're given placebo, at least 50% of the patients are receiving improving results. Of course, with much more drugs that are life savings, placebo is given only from some extent forward, and there are additional drugs that are doing the main job, but still people that are receiving the additional placebo are having better results in some of the controlled groups. So the psychological effect is always working. And the beautiful thing about reality, and all of us are capable in some areas, like, okay, some people are very strongly into data or into computers, and in some areas we are very strongly involved and we understand these areas. But the problem is that nobody is willing to open their personal Pandora boxes. And there are a lot of them all over and around us. And for me, before COVID, I was thinking that all these secret societies or the Freemasons or whatever, this type of knowledge or something that is esoteric, it is maybe something they do. We are not such type. We are normal people. We don't understand this, but more and more I'm exploring, I'm seeing that it is not possible any other way everything to work instead of coming from the invisible to the visible. Even with our intellect, of course, there is a lot of debates, and I listen to a lot of YouTube channels about where exactly is consciousness, how it's happening. Is it only a physical matter part of the brain? But even if we stay only on this realm of explanation, it is still very hard. And I first start using it with my children, because they go, all of us go into logic with mathematics when we are young. And I always told them that 1 + 1 is never a 2, because you can never find in nature 2 equal ones. Even in the pharmaceutical industry, where we are producing, let's say, batches of 30,000 packs or 1 million packs, it doesn't matter. Everything is serialized, so there is difference in time. There is difference in a lot of areas. So nothing is 100% equal to another. Then how can you sum 2 unequal things into having a sum? So then you go one assumption over. Okay, now we are done speaking about 1 3 + 1 plus 1 other 3 equals 2 3s. But we are going to create a concept, a new layer of understanding. And this is where now all the concepts, you cannot feel them, you cannot touch them, all the models that we are creating in our mind. And nobody can answer the question, who is observing everything? This ability of the human being to have a third person perspective upon the realities, it's a very strong thing. And even if consciousness, because there is it's very easy to say, okay, there is the soul, there is the spirit, and so on and so on, but nobody can show these invisible things. And the beautiful thing about, that's why I'm not strongly moving into spirituality and esoterical things, to the sense that we are disclaiming the physical materiality, because without it's a world of paradoxes. Without the physical materiality, we cannot explain the invisible, but without the invisible, we cannot experience the physical materiality. Exactly. So it is like the conscious, subconscious thinking, and it's very easy to, when we speak with computer people, and when we speak about the matrix and each choice of an illusion, and so on and so on. Actually, what we are doing during our conscious daily reality, we are 95% on automation mode, and actually our subconsciousness is doing the job for us.
Yeah.
And what we are doing then with our conscious mind, during the period of the day with our conscious mind, the only thing we can do is to put some programming into our subconsciousness. So during the day, we can influence the subconscious, and during the night, our consciousness is influencing the subconsciousness. And during the awake mode, our subconsciousness is influencing the consciousness. It is like what we see in the reflection of how the moon and the sun is more representation of the so-called conscious part of us, while the moon is the representation of the subconsciousness, because it's during the night, and so on. So if somebody can explain why the human beings need to go through this cycle of sleep and awakeness.
Yeah.
Why we need to be in these two modes together. What is happening when we're in the subconscious mode? And from there, all these things starts to become fascinated, to be interactive. And for me, the most important thing is actually to become more and more passionate about living our physical matter reality lives.
Yes, well, I agree, and I follow you 100%. And it is, well, up to the point that it is overwhelming. Of course, the fascination, is very narrow to, or very near to overwhelm. And that's when you try to visualize, or to imagine eternity. I mean, in Hebrew we have two notions of time, and that is corresponding to this also a paradox. Time is the time which is running, and we invented the seconds and minutes and so on, but this time material world. And there's Olam. I mean, one is called eight, and Olam is eternity, where wholeness is happening, so to say.
Yeah.
And so we are all just destined to wholeness.
Mm-hmm.
All. We come from wholeness, we go to wholeness.
Mm.
And yeah. The difficulty is, like you explained, we only experience a tiny bit of all that, and then we think we know all, and we can discover all, and of course it's pure illusion. Why I was so much interested in your program and in the title, The Construct. Mm-hmm. Reality, because it is a construct. What we see is a construct. It is not reality. And you said it so correctly, to accept it as it is. For us to accept as it is, because we even don't perceive it as it is.
Yeah, that's true.
And there is like our friend said, well, I'm not experienced in this field. I mean, I forgot your name because I could not read it on my iPhone here, so it's so tiny, the name.
Alex. My name is Alex.
No, your name, yeah, but our friend
Wendy.
Wendy,
yes.
No, Alex, it's okay. Yeah, we get to this difficulty, like I said in the beginning, that when we work with people in the coaching business, people have not this understanding of reality or not reality, transcendency, the construct. They find it very out of whatsoever. How do you deal with this?
Yes, I mean, this is part of my frustrations that I like to work with, because a lot of people are working just on the surface. But me and Wendy, we were in this Elite Mentorship Forum programs with one guy called Peter Sage. I don't know if you have heard about him.
Peter Senge?
Peter Sage, S-A-G-E.
Sage. Yeah, I heard maybe. Yeah, you showed him on the YouTube. Yeah.
So at least for me, it inspired me because he strongly understands that everything happens from the inside out, and he's implementing it and using it daily in his own personal life, and this is how he lives it. And he has been before in the personal development industry, and even today when I look a lot in the personal development industry, I don't like, because every time it's only about the surface. It's only about, do you want me to help you with this issue? Do you want to follow my 5 recipes and so on? And
yes,
life is not about this. And how he constructed his program, it's a 12-module program. The first model is about ruling reality, actually. Of course, one of his big saying is that nobody knows the truth. We are all the time trying to explore it and to understand more about it, which is very interesting, because this is how I'm moving forward more and more into exploration, because it is not possible to know the things as they are if we already think that we have the right perception. And then we study there a lot about focus, emotions, how to master different aspects, basically, of this quadrant number 1, the internal world, in order to influence the outer world. And of course, long term, I start to put more things above what he was explaining about, in order to understand everything, because I'm a business person. I need a lot of things to be 100% working in my personal business in order to be able to create more value. And I bought a house that cost me, house that I need to destroy, and it cost me 70,000 euro. And in this house, I found the capital of Karl Marx. And I said, if I paid 70,000 euro and I found this book, I'm going to start reading it to see what's in there. And what I found out is that in order he to understand what is actually the man and the capital of the person adding to the materials, then I found out, aha, so actually there is some honey. This is how I translated it for myself, that every human being is putting into the materials. Without the human capital, it is impossible the materials to be turned into something different. And of course, we can say different things about the people, but they were part of the change of our collective internal, this quadrant number 3. And till today, in the manifested reality, a lot of things are as they are, and now everybody knows how to honor the human capital because of its innovation. Actually, everything material is starting to appear as consumer goods.
Yes.
And it all started with somebody who just saw exploitations of human beings and wanted to understand that there should be something more, and this should be fairly priced into the end of the products. And that's why today we have products which the cost of good is not more than 2-3 euro, but because of patents, because of the human additional energy that is put, it costs so much. So yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Some 2 or 3 days ago, I thought about this because I studied the Marxian thing, and I said, well, no, he lived in a different world where the plus value was done by more than intellectual value, by physical value, by workforce and so on. The beginning of the industrial age. And now more and more things get immaterialized, and this intellectual value is getting more important than the other one. And automation is going on and so on, things he could not imagine. So I was exactly thinking about this, and this, which is the factor, what is the factor of putting value to things, so that what is ruling our world now? I mean, there's power, there is resources, and there's time, something like that. These are for me the 3 fundamental values which are added, or which are, well, ruling. I mean, I found it interesting that you said ruling the reality. I mean, as a theologian, I would say it is after paradise. You know, the 2 persons had been expulsed in this tale of paradise in order to rule reality, in order to rule the world. This ideology of subject the world, which led to the catastrophe we are living now, of ambiental catastrophes and so on, because it was a wrong understanding of ruling.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I'm a Christian from 17-year-old, and I understand a lot about these 2 things, which are very interesting: the mythos and the logos. One part of going into the logical conclusions and so on, and staying in the physical matter part, but the mythos is explaining a lot of the models, and of course we can have personal beliefs and so on, but we are to be able to deconstruct them, to depersonalize them to some extent. And of course, long term, we can still believe in personalities and so on, but we need to also put them into a plane that, I mean, from 17-year-old, I was a believer, but only maybe 3 weeks ago, I realized why we, the human beings, cannot exist without the existence of a creator. For so many years, I knew these things, that it is working, but I didn't understand why it's not possible to be other way. And it happened only after I tried for first time LSD, because one guy wanted me to help him in his spiritual experience, and he just asked me to try it. I said, well, I'm 100% sure what I'm going to experience. It is not going to be something that I don't understand and so on. But what I found out is such a big delusion of the mind, because I knew that I imported into my body something that is not the real thing. For the first time, I found out how delusionally solid the illusion is. And my ego was so strongly leashed out that I was able to be, I could consume the whole world in 1 second. Everything was me. There is nobody else in this reality but me. And I was so afraid, and I realized for the first time why we need a higher power to subdue this potential of a limitless ego to consume everything. And that's why I'm speaking about actually that we are subduing the ego by allowing space for others to exist, because this is how actually existence happened.
Very good.
Somebody allowed something else to exist.
Yes, that's a very good phrase. I like this phrase. Someone beyond allowed that something else exists. And it's creation. Yeah. I love this phrase. Yeah, absolutely. Oh,
yeah.
Wow. So you went on the journey of getting out of yourself, and then it's another way of, what you said in your presentation, to get out of what you experience. I mean, the third position. I was teaching conflict resolution and negotiation, and I'm still teaching this. And I always say, in order to, you have a pocket tool. You have a pocket tool when you are in a difficult situation, when you are in a meeting, when there is some very strident, very tough situation, and you are triggered, to explode, to be angry, or to aggress, or to whatever, or to give in on, and so on, and to disappear literally from the table. And then you put yourself like above, like fly on the wall, and you look at yourself. And this is only what people or humans can do. Apparently, maybe others also, but we don't know this, but we can do it. And this is what you experienced. I mean, you went into the other space and out of the body. And wow, what an experience.
Yeah, and I mean, for the first time, I never knew that actually the invisible is much more solid than the visible. But it is normal, because solid, what means? Solid means still, constant, not changing. And everything in the physical materiality is constantly floating and changing and moving. And we say, no, this is the real thing.
This is the real thing. I can touch it. It's solid. No, it is not. It is vibrant. We only don't realize it.
Yeah.
And what did you say, that the immaterial is more solid? Something like that? That's what you experience. Wow.
Yeah. And it should be logical to be so. But I mean, the problem with how I started with paradoxes. I said, well, all the world is constructed. I mean, all the constructs in this reality are made in paradoxes. And this life that we are experiencing, we experience it between these two paradoxes. Okay. Existence. I mean, from the moment we are born, we realize after 2, 3, 4 years that we are going to die. And still we are existing, you see? And then, of course, long term, we know our destination, and still we want to transcend this into something more. And in this way, we're extracting something different from ourselves, and this is made by a design.
Yes.
So we are such a beings that we can never be afraid of end of something, of non-possibility, of hopelessness. We can always find hope or solution, or
yes,
so
there's always a step further, which is we call it hope. Well, there's one phrase. I love this phrase because it's so true. Hope is certainty about things which you cannot see.
Mhm.
And so the hope you just mentioned is, well, it will go on, will go on, will go on. But the real hope, which gives you force and power, is the hope, or is this, I don't know, this attitude of knowing that there's something which you cannot see, but it is more real than the table you're sitting at.
Mhm. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Wendy, would you like to say something? Because otherwise we
Sorry.
may speak all the time.
I am thoroughly enjoying listening to the two of you speak. It is very enlightening. Yeah, I am of the total knowledge that nothing is forever. Everything changes. We're in a constant world where states of matter change, looking at either water, ice, wood decaying, everything changes. And that the opposite of life is not death. The opposite of death is birth. And we're just somewhere in between. We were all born, we are not dead yet, and we just have to do the best with what we have and always learn. Like always, we were meant to learn, to grow. We were not meant to stay in a bubble. And I want to experience absolutely everything that I possibly can, because otherwise I just feel like I'm stagnating. And I said to one of my buddies the other day, also an EMT, and I said, I've never been to Europe. And they went, what? Like, how? And I'm like, no, I stay in North America. It's like North America is my little comfort zone. And you don't grow within your comfort zone, which means I will be traveling to Europe in the near future, just so that I can experience something other than the North American culture, which is very new and very, well, I find some of it very certain that they are right. And I don't have that mindset. I want to experience everything. So yeah, for me, getting out of North America for a little while is part of my growth journey. But listen to the two of you talk. I love you both.
Thank you. Well, that's a great perspective, Andy. I mean, well, I'm here in Germany, and I travel quite a lot, and it is so, let's say, of course, it makes you richer. It makes you understand quite a lot of things and accept, like we said, accept as it is, accept a lot of things, know yourself better, what you like, what you don't like, what you could like, make steps, baby steps or big steps towards things you never did before, or you never felt, or you never saw. Yeah, that is adventure. We are here for adventure, I think. Great plan.
Okay. So if you want, I can finish here. And of course, we know each other's LinkedIn profiles, and we can continue chat and follow each other's and can continue moving forward. Anyhow, I mean, mastering or ruling our reality is a constant journey. It's not so easy to do it.
No.
But for sure, it's very interesting. And one of the interesting things that it is for me, and why I like a lot to use the reality, is because that it is not impossible. There is another paradox. If we want to know ourselves, we think that we need to strongly involve all our imagination and all our focus towards our insight. But actually, it is 100% the opposite. Through our expressions in reality, we understand who we are. And that's why now when I'm making different decisions in reality and so on, sometimes I want something from my insight, from my intuition, and then my mind is trying to fake it a little bit. And I say, no. I want to see what my authenticity is expressing out there in order to understand who I'm actually are, and not just to think that I'm something that I'm still not. And that's why I like a lot to observe myself from this third person perspective and to know more about myself through the way I'm behaving in the actual reality, not just to sit or to meditate and to think that I'm something very strongly beautiful and so on, because of course inside of us all are limitless beings, but the important thing is how much we alone are allowing ourselves to express in the outer reality, and why, which is also very funny.
That is a great sentence, not only to to end, but to start.
Mm.
Yeah, great.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Alexander.
Yeah.
It was a great moment, and yeah.
Thank you.
It confirmed many things I am thinking for the last weeks.
Okay, we can continue discussions and off topic and chat with each other. Okay.
Great.
Thank you, Wendy, for
Thank you, Wendy. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Good luck.
Bye, my new
Alexander.
friends.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.